Writing to remember. Today's theme, as Hanju said, is memories from home. 5 of your fellow congregants will read vignettes from their own lives on this topic. Those memories might be sweet or bittersweet or completely sugar-free. But how do these memories get documented? We could say we remember and then we write things down. For me, it doesn't work that way. I took Beth Harrison's spiritual autobiography class 19 years ago and discovered that by starting to write about a topic, memories emerged from the writing itself. So in my case, I start to write and then I remember. When you and I converse, I tell you a story or an anecdote, you become a collaborator. Because whatever, I can tell intuitively what you like, especially if I make you laugh. And then when I repeat that story, as I'm apt to do, I think of the part that you liked, and I make sure to emphasize that, because we're kind of collaborating, even if you're not there with me, so on. So the story is shaped by having an audience. But when I sit down to write, I'm alone. I am not trying to please or entertain anyone. I'm trying to understand and express myself. The memories emerge as I ask myself, is there more to this? And why do I feel this way? Both my parents died 30 years ago, but in my writing, they have reemerged and asked to be reevaluated. As an example, I would always tell you my mom wasn't a hugger, but I knew that she loved me. But in writing about her, more details emerged. Where did I have the most contact with my mother? In the kitchen, in the late afternoon, talking to her and helping her with small cooking tasks, rolling out a pie crust and knowing that any excess dough would be coated with cinnamon and sugar and baked alongside the pie as a treat for us kids. Does that sound familiar? How did talking with my mom shape me? I would tell you she was warm, but writing about her made me think about it in more detail. She was warm, but she shaped me through curiosity. Even when she was mad at me, she would ask me, how did you make that decision? My dad would have said, here's what you should have done. But that's a different story, and the reason I was in the kitchen instead of in the living room with him. And through writing about my mom, I remembered something really important that I had forgotten. My mom sang to me. She wasn't a singer, and she was pretty shy, but she sang to me one-on-one, especially for I was school age. It was a display of affection for her. So I'm going to emulate my mother here for just one part of a verse. Button up your overcoat when the wind is free. Take good care of yourself. You belong to me. Wouldn't that be the sweetest thing to hear your mom sing? I've talked about Beth's writing class a lot and my writing group a lot over the years. And the 2 biggest reasons people have said that they wouldn't want to participate are, 1, they don't think they're good writers, and number 2, they don't remember the past very well. So we've already noted that for many of us, our memories improve as we write. But what about being good? I was never good. I dangled participles. I actually don't know what a participle is. But I know I dangled them. I confused tenses until one day I wrote one thing perfect in every way. A letter from college pleading with my mom and dad for a little more money every month. I did not write with my usual confusion. I was clear, persuasive, and effective. So I'd recommend replacing the word good with the word effective. All you need to do is get your thoughts on paper, and your thoughts are worth it, I promise.
This may seem a little sugar-free at first, but believe me, there's some deep sugar in it. So, I usually travel once a year to Ohio, where I was born and raised. I often say I'm going back home when referring to this trip, despite the fact I've spent more years living outside of Ohio than in it. The experiences of growing up in that home, which was intricately enmeshed with religion, affected me deeply. My parents' religion of choice was a brand of fundamentalist Christianity, and every time our church unlocked its doors, my family was there. From the outside, it may have appeared a particularly devout community, but on the inside, fear, guilt, and shame were rampant. It was a place of rigid beliefs, control, and spiritual trauma. Anyone who questioned the norms of doctrine or practice did so under the threat of ostracism. Seeking for deeper answers was dangerous. Many people, especially those in a position of power, felt free, even obligated, to intrude on others' spiritual lives and confront them if their so-called fruits of the Spirit seemed lacking. We worshiped an angry, unknowable, and brittle God who was much more focused on our behavior moment to moment than on the love he supposedly had for us. There was an immense amount of talk about the love of God, but there was little love shown to human beings with all their attendant frailties. A hymn we sang had the chorus, "They will know we are Christians by our love," but the music was dirge-like. It was little wonder that love was such an opaque topic. God was a micromanager who was so wrathful that even his flock was not immune from an eternity in hell. How could anyone feel loved by a God so fickle, so conditional? It twisted the meaning of love from something life-sustaining and deeply positive to something that was the source of painful bewilderment. Then there was the fear not only of hell, but of the rapture. As a boy, I was always listening for trumpets. The smoke detector woke me up from sleep one night, and I thought with a sense of terror that it was the sign of the rapture. And I thought I would either be rocketed skyward or find myself alone in the house, left behind. When I accepted Christ as my Savior at 5 years old, I did it because I was afraid of hell, but also because I was terrified at the thought of being abandoned. Despite all the negative forces arrayed against me, I sensed there was a presence greater than myself, protecting me and guiding me through a fraught childhood. And whatever that power was, I wanted to be aligned with it. My conversion was a real transformative event in my life. I became personally devoted to the Christian God and memorized swaths of the Bible as a teenager. The Bible is still one of the most influential pieces of literature in my life, though, as you'll hear, I don't take each word literally. But spending 2 painful years at a Christian college and enduring the fallout when I decided it wasn't for me convinced me that my questioning had broken my faith. Looking back now, I realize I was learning that faith is a journey, and faith cannot grow without leaving rigid beliefs behind. The result of religious abuse is that it not only makes people feel bad, it makes them feel as if they are bad. I'm still struggling with this today. I struggle to feel loved and struggle to feel that my love has any effect. And trauma is not easy to repair. There was a time when I thought I would never set foot inside a church again. And yet, here I am. Here I am at UUFRC. This is my spiritual home, and I'm here now.
I have always loved road trips. It's usually just me, a dog, and a modest budget, so I stay in places that are clean but boring. And about 15 years ago, I started playing this game. I would look around the room before I went to sleep, and I'd think, if I have to live in this room for the rest of my life, how will I make it a happy home? And then I'll go crazy thinking about paint colors, designing furniture, maximizing the light to put plants in certain places. Where am I going to put my bird feeders? Can I have a stove and a reading chair? No, I'll take the reading chair. And when I'm done, I'll feel really good and I'll go to sleep. Now, I never questioned why I played this silly game, and I never questioned the sense of satisfaction it gave me. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have probably guessed that I was finding a way to reassure myself that I could be happy anywhere and any place. But now I think that what I was doing was designing what home really means to me. A place of peace and security and no pain. A place of safety, a haven. My childhood homes were not peaceful and not emotionally safe. My married homes were often filled with laughter and joy and fun, but my ex, a very funny guy, could turn that humor into picadors that picked at my soft spots. And I never completely relaxed because I was always kind of looking at his face and judging his mood a bit. So it was not a place of safety. In contrast, my little hotel imaginary rooms were always safe because they were colorful and pretty, and there was no other people in them, so nobody could hurt me. I think that sounds, and I sure hope that I've remembered this because I just lost my words. I don't want that to sound pitiful in any way, because it's not. I really envy people who have a sense of home that's filled with loving family. My family's a little bit problematic, and the good thing is I'm an introvert. So tell me that I have to be in a cozy spot where I can look at pretty things, have unlimited books, pet a dog, maybe a split of Chardonnay in that mini fridge. That's heaven, okay? So it's not bad. Last month, I downsized to a townhome on the water in Redwood Shores. And when I walk in the door now, I take this deep breath, I relax, and I smile. And I've decided that that's my idea of home, a place where I can take a deep breath, I can relax, and I smile.
Driving home to the one stoplight town in the Berkshires of Western Mass where we used to live from metropolitan New York meant leaving congested highways and gradually entering the serenity of a rural landscape. Small towns surrounded by rolling hills, oak and maple woodlands, and farmlands with grazing cows lined the flower-filled roadsides. Snowy fields in winter, brilliant color in fall. We drew deep breaths as the calming scene relaxed us the rest of the way home. Driving home to the Bay Area is the reverse journey. It ends with urban traffic rather than the quiet of nature. To go to the serenity of the mountains, we must drive for hours in traffic on multi-lane highways until finally the land begins to rise into the foothills of the Sierra. The roads narrow and the air seems to clear. Soon, we are among tall ponderosa and Jeffrey pines as the elevation increases. My heart soars as we drive through the majestic forests and smell the mountain air. Not quite like rural New England, but pretty darn nice. As we descend from Echo Summit, greenery appears among granite boulders. We turn off 50 before the Y and find our way to the gem of the glacial lake, our destination. Our daughter Meg always opens the car windows to bring in the forest air on this final leg. After navigating the narrow, rutted lake road, we arrive at the treehouse that Meg and her family have made into a home away from home. Sitting on the deck, we peek through the tall pines and cedar at the incredibly beautiful, deep, fallen leaf lake that in earlier times was probably part of Lake Tahoe. Did I say awesome? The lake does not disappoint, cold and refreshing, not bone-chilling, the air pure, the waterfall from Lily Lake abundant, the coffee milkshake from the marina, the best. Despite the 100 steps to get into the house, which is definitely not designed for the aged. Being at this lake is always restorative. Did I mention the stars at night? The tranquility? There is something about being in the mountains that lifts my spirit, even if I have to stop every 10 steps to catch my breath. After a day or two going up and down the paths, it becomes easier, the long, unpleasant drive forgotten. But then we have to leave and drive back to the congested Bay Area with many stoplights and much traffic. Homecoming is neither easy nor stress-free, unlike driving home to the Berkshires. The trick is to hold on to the good mountain feelings long enough to drive into the driveway and go out the back door to the garden. Colorful zinnias wrap around a metal sculpture. Huge black-eyed Susans brighten several spots. On close inspection, the lavender and blue penstemons show themselves. In the corner, the pink abutilum bellflowers are beginning to appear. The roses don't seem to quit. A huge pink salvia is blooming its lovely head off at center stage. They are the annuals that will show their colors all summer long and lift my spirits when I look out the window. The garden is what I really thought I would write about the restorative power of being among plants and animals in nature, about the oasis of calm in the backyard. And then, last weekend, we went to the mountains, and I realized how much I loved being there and wanted to write about that, so I did both. The mountains inspire awe, but without the tedious travel, my home garden provides respite every day, and open space preserves are not far away. Nature offers us beauty in many faces. I love going to the big mountains, hiking in thin air, swimming in icy water. Yes, I like that. And being among the tall trees. The getting there is beginning to be daunting. Looking at the multitude of flowers, a very tall redwood, a neighbor's orange tree, gives me great pleasure. And all I have to do is walk out my door. I'm not saying I won't go back to the mountains, but I like being driven. As going places gets harder, it's good to realize there's much right here at home to lift my spirits and soothe my soul. And don't we all need that? Did I say I'm a lucky girl?
For those few of you who don't know it already, our second vehicle is a camper van conversion called a road truck. It has all the comforts, including even an induction cooktop that our stick home doesn't have. I am happiest when Leslie and I are together exploring the country, with Leslie reading a guidebook or her phone, picking out all kinds of interesting places to go. A few years ago, after seeing Mount Rushmore and spending the night in Custer State Park in South Dakota, we drove on toward Badlands National Park. With a name like Badlands, you just have to see it. The route was circuitous, and we were too late to spend the night there, so we stopped at a private campground outside the park. In the morning, watching the light as the sun rose on the wall, we took the scenic tour drive. As the morning ended, we went to the southern part of the park, the part that is at least partially within an Indian reservation. I also went to see, just beyond the park, the Wounded Knee Memorial. We stopped for lunch in the hot sun. It was 102 degrees in the unshaded parking lot at the White River Visitor Center at the southernmost entry of Badlands National Park. We ate and then took a nap, blissfully enjoying the air conditioning. We were the only car in the parking lot, and having been there for a while before we emerged, we drew some attention. When we went in, we met a young ranger who was Lakota. We were the only people in the visitor center, and he was eager to tell us what he knew. At one point, when we were near a window to look out at the parking lot, he asked about the red nose on the front of the road truck. I took my red nose out of my pocket and put it on, saying that it was a design feature to make the car look like me. He laughed. And I had a chance to talk about Fool's Mission and tricksters. Native American societies have tricksters too, and I was helping to engage him. It worked. I mentioned coyote. The Lakota tricksters are coyote and spider. He told me the Lakota creation story. It seems that coyote and spider were just bored with playing tricks on the animals above the ground. So they went into a hole in the ground and found that there were humans living below. They created the appearance of beautiful clothes so that the humans would take them seriously and convinced 7 human families to go to the surface. They told the humans about how beautiful it was above, warm and plenty of food, just a great place to live. When the human families came out, they were shocked. It was becoming winter. They had no shelter. Animals were scarce, so they decided to go back down. They were disappointed to learn that the hole had closed off, and they couldn't get back. With things above getting desperate, they fell to their knees to pray. The Supreme Being answered their prayers by turning the remaining people below into buffalo and releasing them to the world above so that the humans would have something to eat and could protect themselves from the elements with the hides. The 7 families appreciated this, but understood that their relationship to the buffalo and promised to treat them with dignity and to preserve them. Each of the 7 families started its own tribe, and the result was the creation of the 7 tribes of the Lakota Nation. The young man who was at the visitor center also told me how to say coyote in Lakota. He went behind the counter and pulled out his personal handwritten Lakota English translation spiral-bound notebook. It was never written in language, so the words were written phonetically. Coyote was pronounced Shugmanitu. We had a conversation about teaching Lakota in school. They're trying, but because communication in indigenous languages was prohibited in school and in public by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the language is almost lost entirely. As we left, a coyote ran across the road, not more than 100 feet in front of us. This is the closest I had been to a coyote for a long time. It seemed appropriate.
Habitat as home. When I wrote this title, I couldn't decide if it was habitat as home or home as habitat. Probably either way. I grew up in the South Bay Area in Santa Clara County. I spent my whole childhood through college living in this habitat, and then again I've lived in San Mateo County for the past 20 years. The dry grass, oak, and bay laurel trees are in my bones. I know redwoods intimately from walking the local trails. I've lived through many drought cycles and counted on summer fog blanketing the coastal hills. My experiences and memories of this place, this home, ground me spiritually. My family immigrated from the East Coast before my conscious memory, and my parents, originally from the rural South, embraced California culture. We traded iceberg lettuce for romaine. We ate Sunday pancake breakfasts and London broiled dinners on our outdoor patio. I started exploring the Sierra Nevada mountains on family camping trips and later backpacking with the Girl Scouts. I grew up so much in this place, it became my whole reality. Didn't everyone have to conserve water by putting bricks in their toilets and not running the water while doing dishes or brushing teeth? Weren't summer nights reliably cool, and didn't winter only occasionally bring frost? I loved this landscape, yet I took it for granted. I noticed that some bushes and trees drop leaves in summer rather than fall, but I didn't understand their water-conserving adaptations. I knew to avoid poison oak, but didn't realize that many native herbivores depend on it as a food source. When I left the Bay Area for several years, graduate school, jobs, marriage, I still came back periodically to visit Peter's parents, and these visits anchored me here. In recent years, climate change has affected this habitat, as well as the burgeoning population from multiple high-tech booms. Like others, I bemoan rush hour traffic extending for longer and longer hours, and I complain about the high cost of living. I started to wonder whether this place still felt like home to me. Our daughters Lily and Abby grew up and left the area. Nonetheless, our UUFRC community provided a strong center, and my memories of childhood and early adult years here remained an important part of my sense of place and of home. 3 years ago, I volunteered to become a nature docent at Huddard and Wunderlich Parks, and through this training, I began to learn more about our local flora and fauna. Suddenly, the world around me became more vibrant, more fascinating. To lead nature hikes with school children, we learned to arouse their curiosity through asking questions, which in turn led to even more questions and a greater awe for nature's complex beauty. You know, that interconnected web of life. I'd never fully appreciated it before. This spring, after watching a documentary about redwoods, my husband Peter and I decided to explore Big Basin. We hadn't been there since the CZU fires almost 5 years ago. Both of us grew up camping at Big Basin with scouts, and we took Lily and Abby there when they were young. We once backpacked the Skyline to the Sea Trail. We knew that much of the park had succumbed to the fire. All the park buildings were gone, and only a few trails have been reopened to the public. I braced myself for a landscape of devastation, of blackened stumps and scarred hillsides. As we drove into the park, we did stop to take in the new view of the horizon, stretching ominously, almost devoid of trees, to the Santa Cruz Mountains. But when we began our hike, we noticed something amazing. The redwoods were all standing, yes, with blackened trunks, but fully upright and sturdy. Even more incredible, they were full of new growth, healthy branches with green needles, sprouting everywhere on the trunks from their roots. Ceanothus bushes were so laden with bright blue blooms draped over the trail. Birds and squirrels chirped. The forest was full of new life. The rangers told us later that although many of the forest's great trees, the Douglas fir, the oaks, are gone, 98% of Big Basin's redwoods have survived. This regeneration gives me great hope in a time when our habitat and our whole way of life feels threatened. On this afternoon, when I expected to feel depressed, I came away from the park with a strong feeling of hope, even ebullience. We drove back through Boulder Creek, winding through rural communities that have also bounced back after the fire. I have always loved trees, and I feel spiritually connected to our native redwoods. They have survived for millennia, much longer than we humans have inhabited this place. My spiritual grounding comes from this recognition, how puny and ephemeral my life is in comparison. I find this strangely comforting, the idea of deep time, our planet, Gaia, existing long before us and continuing eons after we are gone. This habitat, this precious home, is here for all of us, and it is our responsibility to be its stewards, to help protect it for future generations of living creatures and plants. It is also bigger and more enduring than we are, and for that, I'm eternally grateful.